There's a place he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
This is Kurt Kaikkonen, pastor of Calvary Chapel, Waterford, at your neighborhood church. Today on Face to Face, we'll be in the book of Revelation. So grab your Bibles and let's get started. If you want to hear this complete message in its entirety, go to yourneighborhoodchurch.com, where you can download Your Neighborhood Church app at the App Store. Now we're given this history of this dragon and his background so that we can understand what his relationship to this woman who is with child is. And we know who this dragon is because we're told really clearly in verse 9, where it says in one verse, it uses all the names of this dragon, and it calls him the great dragon, and then it calls him the serpent of old, and that's referring to the serpent that was found in the Garden of Eden, and then it calls him the devil and Satan. And then it says in verse 4 that the tail of this dragon drew 1/3 of the stars of heaven, and he threw them to the earth. Now, this isn't talking about regular stars, but what it's talking about here, it's talking about angels. And this is a reference to passages like the passage we find in Isaiah 14:12, where it says, "How you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning, you who have weakened the nations." And then we're in Isaiah in verse 13, where it says, where Lucifer said, "I will exalt my throne above the stars of God." And he's talking about exalting himself above the angels of God. And angels, they're also called stars when you look in Job 38, where it says, "The stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy." And even if you look at the name Seraph, which is from seraphim, which is a class of angels, that name actually means the burning ones. Okay, so what it's talking about here, and it's believed that 1/3 of the angels that were under Satan's authority, they fell with Satan during his rebellion of God. And then it says that after this fall, the angels from heaven, that the dragon, he stood before the woman who was ready to give birth and devour her child as soon as it was born. Now that is what we have seen throughout the whole Bible. We've seen this conflict with the serpent and the woman and her child. And we've seen this ever since the Garden of Eden back in Genesis 3:15. And that's where God had said to the serpent, he said, "And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed." And where this dragon has always been trying to destroy the woman and her seed, which means that he's always been trying to destroy Israel, the nation of Israel. And he's always been trying to destroy the Messiah that was to come from Israel. And so it started way back in Genesis. It started in the very beginning when Cain killed Abel, or when Pharaoh, he killed all the male children, trying to throw them into the Nile River. And Pharaoh himself, he was actually called a dragon, if you read in Ezekiel 29. And then when you get to like 2 Kings 11, you see that the seed of David, that the royal messianic line that came from David, it got cut down to just being one person. All the other descendants of the kingly line of David, where the Messiah was to come, they were all murdered. So this dragon has been trying to destroy the Messiah way before he would ever come. And then when you look even in the New Testament, where Herod, where he had murdered all the babies at the time of Christ, because he was trying to devour the child at the time of his birth. And Satan, he's not only hated the Christ, the seed, but Satan, he has always hated the seed's mother, the nation of Israel. And where you can obviously even see it in the world with the anti-Semitism. So it's not just in the Bible, like in Egypt with Pharaoh, or like with Persia with Haman, or with Rome. You see it all over history. You see it with the Hitlers, and you see it with the Stalins. And the world will see it one more time again in the middle of the 7-year tribulation period that we're reading right here. And just to be clear, anti-Semitism is always satanic in origin.
So most of what we've read here, it's already happened. And we're told that this male child, which is Jesus, that he will rule all nations with a rod of iron. All right. When I used to read this, and I wouldn't really want to admit this, but it kind of sounded to me like Jesus would rule the world kind of harshly, that he was going to be kind of a very tough ruler and very strict. And that maybe if you got a little out of line, he'd bop you on that head with that rod of iron. But that rod here, it's speaking about a shepherd's rod. And what it's saying is that Jesus will shepherd the people. And that word used here that says to rule, where it says to rule all nation, that's also the same word that's used for shepherding. So Jesus will shepherd all the nations. And being iron, that means that this rod will never be broken or will never be taken away. But this rod of iron is also mentioned in Psalm 2, where it mentions that the rod of iron will be shattering the nations and dashing them into pieces like a potter's vessel. So Jesus, he will not only be shepherding his people, but he will destroy the nations and the powers that have been destroying his sheep. Okay, and so now we read where God has prepared a place for Israel, the woman, and that God will feed her for 1,260 days, which again, 1,260 days is about 3.5 years. And so this all correlates with the last 3.5 year period of the 7-year tribulation. And so God feeding Israel in the wilderness, it reminds us of the Exodus where God fed and he sustained Israel for 40 years. So in comparison, 40 years to 3.5 years, 3.5 years is not that much. And you have to remember that in the Exodus, God nourished over 2 million people. So it's not difficult for God to provide for Israel again. And so maybe he'll bring back the manna and maybe he'll bring back the quail or maybe he'll do something new. And many people believe where Israel actually flees to is in the rock city of Petra, which is located in the country of Jordan. You may have seen that city because that's the city that they used in that movie, Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom. And in Petra, at one time, it's said that it housed over 300,000 people. So nowadays, Petra is open and Jews go to Petra. They say about 1,000 Jews travel to Petra a day. So now we get this glimpse in verse 7 of the spiritual battle that's in the future that will be happening in the heavens. And so this is still the midpoint of the tribulation. Now, we've read about these kind of battles before. And these kind of battles, we don't see anything going on from our view, from the earth's view. But these things, they go on in heaven. So they're in a realm or dimension that we can't see. So these are not visible to us. But we've heard about this. We've heard about the archangel Michael. And we've heard and we've read about some of his past battles. And the first place we read about him was like back in Daniel 10, where the angel Gabriel, he's telling the prophet Daniel about this archangel Michael and how Gabriel, how he had been prevented from coming to Daniel until Michael came and fought against the prince of the kingdom of Persia, which gave Gabriel some relief so that he could come to Daniel. And that prince of Persia there, well, that was a fallen spiritual entity that had been over the area of Persia. Just like how this Michael the archangel, he in the same way as the prince of Persia, he's also called a prince of the people of Israel. So there are these spiritual entities, some good angels, some bad angels, that are over regions of land and they do battles. But Michael, he's considered to be like the guardian angel of the nation of Israel. So now we hear about this archangel Michael fighting with Satan over the body of Moses. And we talked about that last week. That's seen in the book of Jude. And now we have Michael fighting again, but this time it's with Satan again. But this time, Satan, he's kicked out of the heavens and he's kicked out with his angels. And when this happens, all heaven rejoices. And so we're told about this person with a loud voice where he says, "Now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ have come. For the accuser of our brethren who accused them before our God day and night has been cast down." And so we can see here that this is a future event, that this hasn't happened yet, because today, Satan, he still has access to God in heaven. And that's exactly what Satan does in heaven. All he does up there is he accuses us before God, just like he accused Job before God in the book of Job in chapter 1. And that's actually what the name devil or diabolos, the Greek name for devil, means. It actually means accuser. Or the name Satan, it actually means adversary. But Satan's words, they're only recorded, his actual words that he spoke, 3 places in the Bible. And every time that he did speak, he slandered somebody. Like in the Garden of Eden, the devil slandered God to Eve, implying that God lied to Eve, that God was keeping something good back from Eve. And then we see him also in the book of Job, where Satan slandered Job to God. And Satan accused Job of only worshiping God because of how God blessed Job. And that if God took away his blessings, that Job would no longer worship him. And then we see the devil slandering Jesus himself in the Gospels, where he kept saying to him, "Since you're the Son of God." And he slandered Jesus that way 3 times. And so after this battle, Satan, he's thrown out of heaven. And we see here, because we read of how these people who were accused by Satan, how they have been justified. And it doesn't say here that they're justified by anything that they did, that none of these people, they were ever found innocent on their own accord. Because it's like when the devil accuses them, just like when the devil accuses us, it's usually true and we're guilty. And I can't speak for you, but I would say that the devil, he would never have to make up any lies against me to accuse me of wrongdoings before God. And I didn't overcome the devil by myself. I didn't overcome the devil by my own power. And it's just like it says here. It says, they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. Because the shed blood of Jesus, it gives us perfect standing before God in heaven. And then by them saying, by the word of their testimony, and I'll tell you that this is also my own testimony, just like it's their testimony, Jesus, he paid it all. And when I received his payment for my life, where I once was lost, now I'm found, and that's how I overcame the devil, just like how they overcame the devil. And so just to let you know, this isn't a magic potion. I've never had a physical drop of Jesus's blood ever on me. But what this means is that Jesus's blood, when it was poured out at the cross, that it was poured out on my behalf. And I've received that payment, and that blood that he poured out there was applied to my sin. And if you receive that payment and you ask him to apply his blood to your sin in faith, believing that Jesus actually did this and that he is who he claims to be, well, then you'll overcome the devil too. And then that will also be your testimony. And then you don't have to defend your lives anymore. And you're not going to have to worry about death, because death has been taken care of for us.
You've been listening to Face to Face. Face to Face on this radio station has been provided by Your Neighborhood Church. If you want to help support Face to Face and put this program on other stations just like yours, you can contact us at yourneighborhoodchurch.com or write Your Neighborhood Church, P.O. Box 500, Romeo, Michigan 48065.
There's a place he comes to me. Though I'm blind, he helps me see. Though I see dimly in this place, one day I'll see him face to face.
Tune in again tomorrow at this same time as we continue to go through the Bible.